This video was broken into 2 parts. You're watching one of 2.
You're watching Every Day's a Saturday, USCC veteran. Let's go, baby. And here's your host, Bryan. And what's going on, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it may be when you're watching this. Nevertheless, I'm recording in the mornings to have a nice cup of coffee. And thank you so much for joining on another Coffee Talk with Bryan. And we have Marie with us again, as usual. Hey, Marie, how you doing this morning?
Feeling heavy today, but it's okay.
Yeah, we had a little conversation before we started, and we kind of decided that we were going to switch it up a little bit today. We were supposed to kind of get into our basically after we got out, we kind of had our struggles, and then we were going to talk about how we kind of started our rise again. But now we want to kind of focus a little bit more on the separations and getting out of the military, the struggles, all the things that are going on. As a lot of you know, they have a label out there. It's 22 a day, and that usually represents the amount of veterans taking their own lives daily. And we know that number could be more, could be less. It varies from time to time, but 22 is the label that they put out there. That's far too many. One is too many. So Marie and I want to just focus a little bit more on how hard that transition is getting out, as well as, what can you maybe do to help lessen the struggles of it all. We don't really have an answer, but we have some tools that you can possibly use for your toolbox. But before we get started, let's go ahead and brew up some coffee from Cash Coffee. All right. Don't forget to go check out some Cash Coffee. The link will be in the description of the show. They have all types of great flavors, some really cool merch, and they also have some supplements that you can take for your body and stuff like that. So they're kind of there for your body, mind, and soul, so to speak. But how we doing, Marie? And are we ready for today?
Yeah. So I'm gonna cry from the very get-go. I just found out another battle buddy of mine that I was stationed in Germany with. She became one of the 22 a couple days ago. And so I've been feeling like pretty heavy, with a lot of things. And anyways, I wanted to start out the conversation, since we're going to be talking about this of what it's like getting out and not having a solution, right, to this pandemic, because it's a pandemic. There's we have a hard time when we get out, right? And we feel like there's not a lot of support. And the thing that I have found that has helped me in my mindset is recognizing just how much power that the thoughts inside my mind has, because thoughts turn to actions, right? And so in my sobriety, I've been able to learn a little bit about being able to change those thoughts and recognize that thoughts are so powerful, but I can control them, right? You can't control the initial thought that comes in, but if you have the right tools, you can change that thought and you can turn it to a different trajectory. And so I wanted to share this poem with you, which is one that I wrote in November of 2017. And so we'll start it out with this one. It's called The Power of Thoughts. Thoughts are more powerful than 1,000-pound weight. They can push and pull inside you, change your focus from love to hate. They can chain you down to the bed where you rest. They can definitely guilt you for not being good, better, best. They can contort the way all faces appear, especially the one looking back from the mirror. They can make you assume the world would be best if you could just stop breathing with the rest. They can make you see that darkness is better and there's no point at all to be a goal setter. Don't fret. The solution from all of this madness is just changing those thoughts from pain to gladness. You see, thoughts are more powerful than 1,000,000-pound weight. They can lift you up higher than this mortal state. They can open your eyes to a paradise of love filled with a light as bright as the sun up above. They can fill your heart with the connection we share with nature, each other, all things, everywhere. They can contort the pain in everyone's faces to become a gratitude of having been to those places. They can remind us of old pains and fears so we can be supportive and help others shed tears. Again, thoughts are more powerful than anything you can imagine. They actually control the heaven or hell you're living in. So I ask you today to go into your mind alone or with help, go deeply to find the motivation to change your thoughts' point of view from pain, anger, sadness, or anything askew, and turn it towards hope, love, faith, and peace. And you will find in the end an eternal release.
Outstanding.
So yeah, I was just thinking, with that, it's like I'm full of sadness for for the pain that other people find themselves in. But I also know what it's like to find the joy on the other side of that pain. And so my heart breaks for others who can't see it, but it also is so joyful to know that there is peace that is available with the proper tools.
That couldn't be more truer. Even in my case, I felt that way of, in times where you feel like you're kind of shackled, maybe, or you're not yourself. There's just a lot of things, and you feel like there's no hope, there's no end. And a lot of times that is just a mindset that we get stuck in. And it's not really it's not a reality, it's reality that we have created. And then sometimes when you have no support around you, that reality can become more and more of your story. Instead of it just your made up reality becomes your real story, because you're not having any support around you and you're just lost. And now things that may be in your mind, and a lot of times if you have a good supportive person, they can help you not necessarily change your mind, but help direct your mind, right, and get you in a trajectory better than which you are already going. Like, hey, stop, you're going in the wrong direction. I need you to go over this way. Come over here. Come on. You know what I mean? And if you don't have that, you can get super lost. And once again, something that you started as a mindset becomes your life, becomes you, because you've painted this picture, now you're living in it too. A lot of people do this to themselves. They self-sabotage themselves. They find themselves getting in relationships, and then they sabotage the relationships. They find themselves in friendships. They sabotage the friendships. Because like you said, they don't feel worthy of it. Their self-worth isn't there. It's really hard when someone's walking around like that, and then on top of it, you have someone throwing rocks at them, throwing sticks at them, hitting them, whatever it may be. And that's what a lot of the world is kind of doing nowadays. Instead of us helping each other, we're pushing each other further into a hellhole, which that's kind of sad to me. What the hell are we doing out there? We're really losing grip. We're losing grace. We're losing that whole thing with one another. I'm learning so much about how much we're really dividing ourselves, and hey, you got to think about it. You might be going through a good time now. It doesn't mean, let's forget about people struggling, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. And I don't mean keep yourself there too, but let's help others along. When you start to see like, hey man, they seem like they're a little off today, and spark up that little conversation. Act on something. Sometimes we have thoughts in our minds and we just leave them there. Act on your thoughts sometimes. When you feel, hey, man, I love what that person's, you're thinking in your head, like, I love what they're doing. That is so cool. Why not you, instead of think that, say that to them? Let them hear that from you. Don't let that thought go unheard. Because someone may need to hear that thought. You don't know. They never hear anything good about what they've done today. Maybe they opened up that door nicely for you. Like, thank you so much. You opened that great. Yeah, that's the only thing that they got, someone said something nice to them that day because they just live a solitary life or something. We don't know what the hell the next person's going through, and that's one of the biggest things I think that we struggle with every day is we get really stuck in ourselves and we don't think about the others out there that are really going through it and struggling, and we just think about what's wrong with us and why am I not getting this? Why is this happening to me? And we get really stuck in that sometimes. But the main thing is don't let someone out there continue to struggle. When you see them struggle, try to throw them words of encouragement. There's not much. I mean, sometimes that might not be their fix. Maybe it's because they don't have funds, they don't have money, they don't have this or that or something, and they're and that's what they're looking for, some happiness. Just at least offer them support. Hey, I'm here if you need me. I can't financially support you, but I can be here for you as a friend if you need someone to talk to, cry to, or you need me to come over and help you lift something. I got you. You know what I mean? Wherever you can help.
Yeah, there's
Out there.
yeah, there's an interesting thing that I've been learning, right, over the last 8 years of my sobriety. So like I said before, we can't really control that initial thought that happens, right? We get an initial thought, and
Sure.
whether it's
Right.
it's coming from our brain or it's coming from God or if it's coming from the negativity, Satan, whatever you want to call it, right? There's an initial thought. We are powerless over that initial thought, right? But then we have the choice of what to do with it. So this is where, powerlessness versus the power that we have comes in, you know. And so what I've learned is I'm able to differentiate, is this thought a positive thought or a negative thought? And if it's a negative thought, I have power to say, shut the hell up. I don't need
Right.
to listen to you, go away. But if
Yep.
it's that positive thought, then that is where my choices come in, right? And that is where I'm asking God in my daily life to give me intuitive thoughts and guidance and this, that, and the other. And when He gives me those thoughts, that is where I have the choice. Am I going to follow through with them? And it might be a simple, hey, you should call this person. Hey, you should reach out to this person. Hey, you should like this person's photo. Hey, you should do this. Those simple things that you're saying, right? And there has been so many different moments that I have had where that simple, tiny little gesture has changed somebody's life. And it's the same thing for me. Like there are days where I feel like I just want to give up, or there's days where, and this is kind of like a big thing, right? Today I was having a day where I'm like, I don't really want to share my story, right? And so I was like praying, I'm like, God, I need you to guide how this conversation goes. And so then I
Right.
get on here with Bryan, and he follows through with his intuitive thought, hey, let's talk about something different. Let's talk about more about what happens when we get out. Let's talk about more about our battle buddies. And that is exactly what's in my heart right now. So there are moments that come up where if you get that intuitive thought, follow it, because you don't know whose life you're going to change. Today that meant so much that Bryan came on and he's like, "Hey, let's talk about the struggles of getting out." And I'm like, "Oh, perfect." You know what I mean? So those intuitive thoughts sometimes have so much more weight than you actually realize, you know? So
Yes.
when you get those little thoughts of, "Hey, I should do this," or maybe I could do this, do it, because it changes people's trajectories just a tiny little bit. And like something there's a there's a story that I was told, and I can't remember where it was, on a podcast or something. Anyways, there's this idea of when a big giant boat is getting ready to change directions, right? They can't just turn on a dime. They have to take multiple minor changes where they go like centimeters at a time, and finally are able to turn directions. Well, those intuitive thoughts, those things literally change those make those micro changes in yourself, because it's helping you to continue to make more intuitive thoughts, right? And it also helps other people make their micro changes. And so those tiny little micro changes, in the future, you've got the butterfly effect, and that little tiny change changes the whole directory of somebody else's life. So even though people have a choice, right, of what they do and how they respond to whatever effort is put to them, your actions still have that butterfly effect, and it still influences people. So hold on to those little intuitive thoughts, and like you said, follow through with them, because you just never know what's going to happen with them.
You know what? And honestly, guys, offering up some kindness doesn't cost a thing. And there's in the monetary payout that you get from it, both ways, receptive plus. Because when you sit there and you give someone a compliment and you see the way they react, it also has an effect on you as well. Subliminally, it does, right? And that's what I'm saying. When you see someone out there and you're like, and you think, man, that person's kicking ass, maybe they don't feel that way. Maybe someone else is not treating them such a way, and they're over there and they look like they're fine, they act like they're fine, but there's always the that silent killer that people think in their head that no one sees, the mind. We don't know what they're thinking, right? So sometimes if you're having a thought in your head and you're like, oh, maybe that thought is being put in your head for a reason. You ever stop to think about that? It's kind of weird, right? Like you're just sitting there and then all of a sudden then boom, this thing just comes into your head and you're like, sometimes it comes to our head and we're like, oh, that's interesting. But what'd be more interesting is acting upon that little intuition that's being put in your head. Because like Marie said, that could change someone's trajectory. That could be the outcome of whether someone goes home and pulls the trigger or goes and puts that gun away. And it costs you one thing to say, hey, I see you. You're doing a great job. You're kicking ass. And maybe you're at a restaurant and you just happen to notice that this waiter or someone out there is just busting their ass. Hey, does it really hurt to go out of your way and say, hey, man, you're doing amazing. I see you out there. Give shit. You're lifting all the drinks at one time. How do you not spill them? You know what I mean? And that could put a smile on their face and they're going to just, and they're like, gosh, damn, thank goodness my boss just thinks I'm not doing shit, or something, so you never know. And kind of getting more back into, the veteran aspect of this all. When we get out, I feel that a lot of people look at us as tough. We're just tough people, right? Because
You're so resilient. That is the word, resilient.
You were in the Marines. You were in the Army. You should be tough, right? sometimes people remove the human element from us and just think that we become robots and become desensitized to things. When that's far from the truth. It's just that we've been taught to react differently to things that maybe others may react a different way, right? Like some people, when they hear something going on, they're running. And then sometimes motherfuckers are flying to it, you know? We sometimes, it's not that we don't have feelings. It's just that we process them differently. And we also have been trained not to really show our feelings. We don't really train through the feeling part. There's no training on feelings, right? There's no training to the human aspect of it. Taking someone else's life, watching someone else's life be taken, watching someone be maimed, watching just some of the most unfathomable things happen in front of them.
You push it down and you take the steps. You do the work that you got to do. You feel later. You do the work, feel later.
We got to keep trucking, right? Because there's always, the mission is always at hand and we can't stop. No matter what's happening along the way, it doesn't matter how ragged it ends up being, but we got to get there because we have a mission. And that's the way we're all trained. And so when we get out, a lot of us are desensitized. Our feelings aren't the same, right? You're thinking because we're not crying about something that we don't feel for it. And that may not be the truth. It's just that a lot of us lose the ability to know how to even show our feelings. I know I did. And gosh damn, as a man, do you want to cry in front of another man or anybody, right? You always see, always in movies everywhere, guys turning their backs when they start to cry, or we stop that feeling, don't let it out, right? So a lot of times what happens is, even though we may feel emotional about something, we act with rage, anger, because the way that we've been taught to fight is with anger, and that's how we are taught to win. It's not like we could love our enemy and think how cute they are and, oh, that's so cool. Okay, now we got to go over there and kill them. So when we get out, I think that our family members and others that view us just look at us as tough. There's nothing. There can't be nothing wrong with them. They're a Marine. He's a Marine. He's tough. Hey, you know what though? There is the human aspect of it. You can never change the brain. You can alter the brain, but there's still the human part there that we still have feelings. But like I said, I feel like a lot of us lose the ability to know how to use our feelings in all aspects. We don't know how to cry. We don't know how to have, our relationships sometimes suck. The divorce rate has got to be astronomically high for veterans or military members in general. I don't know what the rate is, but it's got to be out there. I mean, I don't know that I know anybody. I take that. I maybe know a handful of folks that maybe still married and to the same person one time. But I don't. There's very, very few of those people that have been married to one person one time and they're a veteran.
Yeah,
it's hard sometimes to when we date or we start to go and find that other person. There's an element to us that a lot of people don't like, and and it's hard it's hard for us to turn some of it off, but some people just don't like the military in you.
well, one of the big things is we get so good at running or hiding. Like shit is hard. Okay, so we're either going to fight during it or we're going to run away from it. It's like,
Yep.
okay, I've already dealt with all of this stuff. That, you know, there's a couple different mindsets with it, right? I've already dealt with hard things. I don't want my life to be hard, so I'm going to run away. Also, there's the
That's me.
this is hard. It doesn't need to be. Do you know what life really is like? Here is the shit that we dealt with, and this is minuscule. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? You know, so
That's
there's
me
that
again.
mindset. And then there's the other
I'm
mindset
all
where
the
it's,
mindsets right here. You're
yeah,
just going through them.
yeah. And then there's the other mindset. Like for me, I would shut down. I would start dissociating, and I would do the fawning. Okay, I'm just going to go along with this. I'm not really happy with it, but I'm just going to go along with it. I'm going to just
God,
do what I got to do. And then later on, I just get drunk. And
I've done
I
all
get
of
drunk
this.
and I hurt other people, you know, and that's the thing is like and this is another thing that I've been struggling with, right? Okay, in my desires to run away, I hurt other people, you know, and I'm not going to go into all of the details, but I hurt people in a lot of different ways, and that was my reaction, you know, and so I would run away to my alcoholism, and in my alcoholism, I would use that as an excuse to do whatever I wanted, you know. And those were my, you know, those are the three different mindsets mostly that I've seen. It's like I'm going to fight, I'm going to like just run away because I'm like, well, this is stupid, or I am going to hide and drink and hurt and do all sorts of other things just to get away from the situation, get away from my mindset, because
Yeah,
or my
kind of
feelings,
you
because
just
I
go
don't want
with
to
the
feel them.
flow. I've done all three of those mindsets
Yeah.
really, and I've been in all the and a lot of times, you know, when a problem comes up, I want to fix the problem. And sometimes that problem can't be fixed right away and it takes time. But I have that like mentality of if it don't happen now, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like it's like instant, like I need it now. Like we need, you know, fix it now. And if I can't fix it, then I'm out. Right. Because I need a solution. I want, you know, and that's just me. Like I want a solution to this. And if I don't like the solution, I'm fucking out. That that right there doesn't really ever fix any problem either. I'm just kind of just once again running away from that. And it, I don't like the confrontation of it. And like you said, I've gotten to the point in my life where I'm like, I'm already in my 40s. I don't want to keep dealing with this bullshit. I want to have a peaceful life. So if I don't got a solution, fuck that. I'm out. You know what I mean?
Or
And
I'm just going to sit in it and then I'm going to drink later.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Or, you
Or
know,
run
and
away, escape, whatever that looks like, whether it's drinking or food or whatever it is.
and I, you know, and I've gone with the flow, right? And but that all these things that I've done have all proven to hurt me in the end. All three of those mindsets you just said all hurt me one way or the other. Going with the flow, all the shit that I didn't want to happen and said was going to happen happened because I went with the flow. I didn't. Instead of me, you know, at this point in time fighting and trying to do what I want, I just was like, all right, forget about it. Because all the, you know, I didn't like all the confrontations to try to fix it. We were going to have to go through. So I was like, all right, I'll go through the flow. I'll just go with it. And then boom, all the bad things that I said were going to happen. It just took a little bit of time, but it all unraveled. And now looking back at it, I was like, gosh, damn it. If I would have stood my ground, all these things, maybe we wouldn't have gone through so much turmoil. But because I was just like, I didn't want to fight the fight then, just go with it. That hurt me. I've also had the situations of not feeling like I can fix the situation. So I just want to bounce out, you know, and there's been several relationships that I've left because I feel like there was a solution to the arguments or like those type of things. So I just was like, cut it. So I just cut relationships off. Oh, that person, they stressed me out too much. Boom, cut. You know, I just started cutting folks out of my life, just picking them out. people that I grew up with, grew up with my entire life, just started plucking them out because I had a reason for each. Give me a reason. Boom, you're done. I just started doing that. Boom, I don't want to deal with motherfucking people. I felt like, hey, the more people I have, the more problems they bring me, so let me just do my thing. And like to some degree I can live like that, but there's also that other part where you start to, there's times where you get that lonely moment where you're like, gosh, damn, where's everybody at? Oh, I fucking scooted everybody along. So now my bench is cleared. You know what I mean? And I don't have anybody on the bench, but I've started building up my bench again, right? Finding those my friends and people that mean something close to me. They don't have to live within my city limits to be my go-tos. I've met a lot of people through podcasting and going to veteran events and things that I didn't go to before. So reconnecting. And that bench that was cleared is starting to slowly but surely have people on the bench again. And now when I find myself really struggling, instead of being ashamed about it, I go and talk to some of the ones that I know that will take me and listen to me and give me the real deal of what, hey, this is how it is. All right, cool. I need to hear that, man. I have my best friend, my brother, Ojeda. He's my ride or die. He came in about 6 months after me in the Marine Corps, and he followed me around. We followed each other, through different duty stations. We deployed together and we went on missions together, and, we were just always together. And I got out 6 months before him, and we both live in Southern California. So we both get to still hang out. And we've got to watch each other struggle back into the civilian life. Now he's worked his way up to a pretty high level, and he still goes through a lot of struggles that he has, inner demons, things like that. It was beautiful for him to come over one day and us just to have the most candid conversation and just let loose and just be there for each other. Just took an hour or two of our conversation of just, hey, man, it's going to be all right, brother. Fucking dude, I know things are rough, but we were there for each other. And it's okay. We are okay to not be okay. And once you get to that level with other people and you start to learn, like, it's okay not to be okay around this person, it's a lot easier to start letting things go and to really work through those things. You just got to find those people, whether it be 988, press 1, or, reach out to people like myself or Marie. We're here to listen. I don't claim to be perfect, and I'm not like mentally sound here. I still have my mental days, but they're a lot less. And I know how to process through them a lot better than I used to be before, instead of allowing myself to get deeper into the problem. Hold up. My boy, you're going to slip into this slippery slope again, because I do consider life like climbing a mountain. And I look at it as you have easy paths up mountains, you have slippery slopes, you got weather. There's all kinds of things that happens while you're making your descent up a mountain. And that's exactly how life is. But when you get a moment to rest and you're on a ledge and you're just over there looking at the valley, that's the time to shed your beacon out there and say, hey, man, I was able to get to this ledge by X, Y, and Z. And maybe your X, Y, and Z isn't going to fix someone else's ABC, but at least you're giving them a tool or just an avenue, something to think about that could change their trajectory in the way that they're thinking. because we got to get to a level and get rid of the ghost or the big elephant in the room. And it's okay to have emotion. It's okay to fucking feel a certain way. It's the problem is, and this is how it is, right? For the rest of the world. And even like when we were kids, there's always the kid that cried wolf. The person that just sit there and cry, even though they didn't even do nothing, right? They just cry. And you're always like, damn, man. And after a while, you just know that baby, that you call that kid a crybaby. Well, that also translate later on in life. If you sit there and you're crying about misery you're creating, or you're crying about things that you're doing, you're going to start losing focus on how you feel when it really comes down to the real time, when you're really needing someone. Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that create their own misery, live in their misery, cry about the misery they created, and then try to bring everybody else around into their misery all around them. And if you don't play into their shit, they don't want to deal with you because you're not hearing them. They're not, but, and that's why it's hard with the world. And I think that we've gotten to a level of people just that are like kind of numb to it or not willing to hear it, is because there's a lot of people out there that do cry wolf, that legit just, they're self-sabotaging themselves. They're creating their world, and you watch that. So that you start to lose a little bit of like decency or feelings for how others are going through. You're like, but that's a hard mindset to continue to live by. And if we continue to do that, then we're really going to alienate folks that really need the help.
So I was just thinking, like, I did some of that, what you were saying. It was, I didn't know when I got out, I didn't know how to process through my own emotions. And so I would get like super emotional about certain things, but I didn't know how to fix it. And or I didn't realize that I was making things worse in my alcoholism. Right. And so I had like a very interesting dynamic, and I'll put out just for, specifically for one of my brothers, right? Is I would go to him and I'd be like, hey, my life is just miserable and da 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 da. But I wouldn't actually tell him everything that was going on. And so then
Just the
he
part
would,
that, yeah,
yes,
that made it
I
seem
wouldn't
like
go
you
into
were
details.
having, yeah.
Yes. I would go into this victim mentality, look at everything that's happening to me, and I wouldn't talk about here's what I'm actually doing, And so I would get into this victim mentality. I would go to him and I would be like, hey, here's what's going on. He would give me advice. I would go against that advice because I'm already going against it, because I've got all this other stuff going on. And then I would kind of get myself into more trouble. And then I'd come back to him after I get myself in more trouble. And then he's like, dude, I told you to do this and it would help. And I'm like, and so it became this like real codependent type thing where I would go to him and ask him for things. Anyways, yeah. And it was the same thing like with my therapist, right? I would go, I'm feeling miserable, and I would talk to him about all of this, but then I wouldn't talk about what's actually going on most of the time. And so it
Or
just went in this loop. Go ahead.
I'm sure you were this way maybe too, or I could be off, but a lot of times these same kind of people that do these self-sabotaging, right? The world's ending. There's no fix to anything. You offer them up solutions. And every solution you offer to them, oh, that's not going to work. No, that's no. You just want to live there then. Tell me you don't just want to live there. Because here I am,
Yeah.
I gave you actually 3 different options, and all 3 of them are shit. So then you're just telling me you literally want to live there in that spot that
Well,
you're
and
at.
then
Because when people don't want to take that opportunity and you feel like they're just everything, nope, that will never work. Nope. And you're like, I just offered you more than one solution. Like one of those gotta like stick. You know what I mean? Like that's
well
when it
there's
starts to get a little rough too.
there's a couple different layers to that, right? I'm saying it's not going to work because I'm not being truthful about everything that's going on. So I know it's
Right.
not going to work
Yes.
because of everything else I have going on, but I don't want to talk
There
about
you
that,
go.
right? So
Yeah.
there's that. And then there's also the aspect that it's like logically I know it's going to work, but I don't know how to put it into practice. So then I'm like, no, that's not going to work. Even though logically I'm like, well, that makes sense, but I don't have the tools to be able to utilize that. And I don't want to seem weak. So I'm not going to tell you I don't have the tools to properly do that. So I'm not
Right.
going to do that. So then I get defensive as well. So there's a couple different layers to that. Is it might work, or I know it's not going to work because there's stuff that I'm not telling you
And
and I'm not
yes,
being open about.
right. Correct. Yes.
Yes.
I'm glad you really broke that down, because that's a very
Yes.
true factor.
Well, and like
And
I just had an experience talking to a friend the other day about he's a veteran and he's really struggling right now, and he was dealing with a lot of anger. Okay, a lot of anger. And I was like, "Hey, let's look at here's some solutions, here's some solutions." And he was just getting more and more angry, right? And it was like he made the comment. He's like, well, if I do this, then it just makes it okay for them to treat me like crap because other people had been hurting him, right? But he didn't have the tool at the time to recognize that you can be angry at somebody. You can say, I'm not going to let this person treat me this way, but I don't have to feel that anger and hatred for them. And that's a tool that is learned through therapy, right? So he didn't have that tool. So everything that I was saying, like, hey, just let it go and move forward, he didn't have that tool to be like, but hey, if I just move forward, then that just lets them get away with everything. And so I had to explain to him, no, it's not letting them get away with it. It's you're saying, I don't agree with you, so I'm no longer going to have you in my life. However, I am not going to let you eat my lunch anymore. And that is a huge tool that a lot of people don't have. It's called loving and detaching. It's like, okay, I can still love you, even though you're a piece of shit, even though you hurt me. I can still love you, but I don't have to have you in my life. And that is where adequate boundaries come in. But I don't have to feel anger and frustration. And so that's the thing. Like for a good long section of our conversation, I was offering him solutions, but he didn't have the tool to properly recognize. And so that is where the disconnect comes from a lot of times, is we don't understand the tool to process through that solution that you're giving. And so sometimes we have to baby step it down. And so in having the conversation, we got to that root problem where he's not seeing the solution because he doesn't have this tool. And so then we were able to talk about this tool, and I was able to share with him how I got that tool.
it's crazy that we are, by allowing someone else to make you angry or be mad, that is a lot of energy that they are still creating from you. And some, we don't even realize it, but you're that person still has abilities to work on you. They have strings attached to you by being able to pull them and make you angry and mad. How much energy do you give someone when you get mad? You give them a piece of your life. When you get mad and you're angry and stuff like that, it spikes your blood tension, your your blood pressure, your heart rates. There's a lot of things that go into it. And then you carry it around, and then you start sometimes developing anxiety. I myself have been there, and I have allowed myself to give so much energy into something that I didn't have control over. And that's the biggest part about it is that we allow ourselves to get so fucking pissed or angry about a situation that you can't control. If you cannot physically go over there and move it or whatever, you don't have control. And that's a hard thing for, I think, for people to realize. I'm fucking getting so pissed off about something that I can't change the outcome of it. That's like how people are in politics today, and everything. They're getting so outrageously mad. Is it changing anything, guys? No, it's creating more chaos and more
Can I
division.
can I offer a quick perspective?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're talking about, somebody does something, it makes you angry. It's a little string that they have that's pulling them, right? Well, here's a different perspective. Okay. If you're getting angry, it doesn't affect them at all.
Right.
They really don't care. They're just like, I'm just throwing chaos. I don't care. And that's the sad thing. So what's really going on is when you're getting angry, somebody slapped you in the face, and instead of like icing your face, you're punching yourself in the face more times.
Legit.
And you are pushing your own button. Because this person, most of the time, they don't give a crap, because we are all literally living in our own. There's a book called The Four Agreements, right? And it talks about how we're all living in our own bubble. Okay. And we are all making our choices based on our own stuff. So whether or not this person is enjoying our pain, it doesn't matter, because it has nothing to do with them. So they could care less if they're hurting you or happy or this, that, the other. That's their own perspective. It has nothing to do with you, right? But the fact that you are still being pissed off and you are still being angry, their life is going to continue on, whether you're pissed off or happy. They're going to continue on making their choices, right? But if you're continuing to punch yourself in the face and getting more and more angry, and then you start stabbing yourself in the face and hurting yourself because you are just like feeling this festering infection going on, like they could care less most of the time. So this is where we get to that, we get that choice to be like, I am done letting them affect me, because they don't care anyway.
You are allowing someone to live in your mind rent free, right? That's what they say. And then they are doing damage, and they're off over in La La Land, sleeping great,
And you are damaging yourself at this point.
And
stop damaging yourself. Let go of that anger. Let go of that resentment. Let go of that pain. It doesn't mean you ever have to like them and have them in your life anymore. But you also don't have to let them hurt you anymore.
And it's not a sign of like defeat or like I lost or, I hate that part. I think everybody looks at everything like I got to win. I got to be the last. I have to have the last word. I got to have the last dig. I got to, tit for tat. We just got to, well, they did this, so I got to do that. You know what I mean? We have that mentality of getting back at each other or just making the situation perplexly worse by continue the tit for tat. And like this person did this to me, so I'm going to go do this back. And we're not doing anything but hurting ourselves at the end of the day. And when you carry on all this extra stuff, it is like she said, there's no attachment to their feelings or anything other than it's hurting you. It's hurting you physically, mentally. It might be even damaging some of your relationships. Because I tell you, when my ass gets pissed off or mad, I go into a weird fog, and I almost lose sense of reality of what's going on around me, and my mind is so focused, hyper vigilantly on whatever issue is at hand. So now I'm not even being able to really just know what's going on around me. So if you just sit here and you carry on all this freaking pissed offness, that thing is just sitting there in your head, and it's taking up space. It's taking up some of your mental capacity. And so if you let that son of a bitch keep blowing up, you're going to have no room in there to process through things when it really matters the most, because you're carrying on this anger, this mad, and I think a lot of people do it. They're scrolling on TikTok and they watch a reel, and it's the opposing person's view. Oh, son of a, and then it's, and then now they're going at it, and they might even go in the comments, and then they say something, and someone says something to them, and then they're saying something back. I'm only saying this because I've been there. All right, this is my example. The example I'm giving is myself. So you're going in there, and then I'm mad. I walk away, and I could have been going at it with some troll, some motherfucking person that just literally don't care about any of this. They're just in there to really throw turds at me, and I'm over here like, gosh, damn it, mother, blah, blah, and then I'm talking to my wife, and she's like, what are they talking about? I'm just like, well, this mother, and I'm carrying on all these unnecessary feelings and emotions that I don't really need to carry with me. And I waste energy. I waste moments, time on this stupid gerbil running in my head that doesn't get nowhere, right? Because my thoughts, the way I feel, or my little thing with them is going to change the outcome of what's going on. It's just my opinion. It's their opinion. And we want to fight about our opinions. And some of the shit ain't even facts. We're just opinionated.
Now, can I actually take what you're talking about there and incorporate it into the same mindset with regards to PTSD?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So as you're talking and you're explaining to this, I'm thinking about that concept of, okay, this is the same thing with the PTSD, right? We are reacting to something that is no longer happening anymore, and we are beating ourselves up, and we are allowing ourselves to feel these emotions based on something that happened before, and that is exactly what PTSD is, right? So you've got anger, which is an abnormal reaction to somebody hurting you, right? Or somebody slighting you, and you've got PTSD, which is also the abnormal reaction to it as well, right? And so I was thinking about that, and you're like, well, what happened before has no bearing on what's going on right now, but we're still reacting to it. So anyway, so I'm thinking about that, and that is very similar to what is happening, right? Okay, I've got my experiences that happened before the military, and then I have my experiences that happened during the military, and I am bringing that when I get out, you know and I am still reacting these little things instead of being able to. I love my past and I'm going to distance myself from it, kind of like I love people who are hurting me, but I'm going to distance myself from them. It's the same thing. Is I am still reacting even though the trauma is still happening, and there's so many people that is happening to. And it's interesting because I wanted to bring up, like we talked about before, different people's reactions to their PTSD, right? And the thought process that goes into my mind is I wanted to just share a couple stories of people I know who got out, right? Like you guys have heard my story, right? I went into this massive depression, and I went into my alcoholism and my promiscuity, and I went into a lot of manipulating and lying, and just really got lost in a lot of things, right? Well, one of the hardest things about getting out, and you kind of touched base on this, you had a friend that got out 6 months after you, and that's awesome, right? For me, when I got out, all of my buddies were deployed again. Like I got out a few months after I helped them with their medical readiness for them to deploy. And so I got out, there was one person that got out with me, but for the most part, everybody that I kind of knew was gone, and so I didn't have as much of that connection. But I have touched base with a lot of my battle buddies that I was in the military with over the years, and some of the stories, there's so many people that get lost, right? Like I have had multiple friends who have, yeah, oh, there you go, types of PTSD. But I've had multiple friends who have joined the 22. I've had friends who have lost jobs, friends who've been divorced, have um, friends who have been in jail multiple times, friends who've gotten in trouble with drugs and alcohol. Um, there's so many different people who are responding to that trauma and having a hard time when they get back because they, like you said, they feel so isolated. Did you want to share about the slide?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and so I just want everybody to know that, a lot of people when they hear PTSD, they think of military members. And, PTSD is not just, related to veterans or military members. It is anybody that has any type of major event happen in their life that really leaves an impact. So we're going to go through the different types of PTSD.
This video was broken into 2 parts. You watch part 1 of 2. Part 2 will drop Thursday, July 10th.